In this video, we're going to look over Plan Factory settings to make this interface feel more friendly to you with your settings and your preferences. So let's go ahead and start first by looking at options. We can access by clicking File, click on Options, and on the top you'll notice we have tabs General, Sense, Display, Unit Shortcut, and Import. We're going to go over all of the settings and those options. First, let's look on General. Notice first we have a change language. This is language is what you select when you install your applications, but if for some reason you decide to change afterward, you can change inside the applications. Of course, some of the language, it does not relate to your system language. It's what meaning when you install your Mac or the Windows OS, whatever your system language, this will be one, and this is not related. This is more related to application language. Well, we leave it English as default. Next, let's look on the load interface presets. Notice we have right here the legacy Plan Factory shortcuts industry standard. So this is was added in relatively latest versions of the Plan Factory, because some shortcuts are a little bit different in Vue, and this is what's inherited from the Vue. However, some applications using different type of shortcuts. And here you can preload it if you want legacy. If you old school user of Plan Factory and you want to keep it what you already learned, you can use it this way. Or if you come from other applications and you're familiar with other ones, you can preload them from here. We'll look at another place where we can do this as well, in case if you don't know what shortcuts do what. Okay, and below, actually, if we look on down below, we also can use it navigation interface presets related to specific applications. For example, Maya 3D Max or Cinema 4D. This is in a case if you're familiar. Like I work with Cinema 4D mostly right now, so I can click and use it Cinema 4D preset. That is make for me not worry about the relearning or the key shortcuts. But for the purpose of these videos and these lessons, we'll keep it everything vanilla to the Plan Factory. So whatever is default coming with shortcuts and other stuff, it's what we're going to use here. Okay, after you select, you can click OK. Also notice right here we have a default flat gray or default dark gray, so just change a little bit colors, but you can also customize all of them as well. Okay, down below we can have the reset option to default, just in case, if you mess up and you want to restore original settings, you can always click and restore. And this is the reason actually I ask people to experiment. Just go set, play around with all settings, everything, because of worst case what you can do, you come back here, click restore to default, and everything, all of the settings will be restored to original, so you can experiment again. Restore default disable message if you have it in message. It is when it's come notification sometimes. For example, message maybe come up and says, hey, you're using too many polygons, do you want to do this? And on bottom will be like, click here to disable this message. If for some reason you disable some of those messages but you want them back, so you just click here and restore disabled messages. Also talk about editors, which is allowed us to move some of those editors into our scene. In Vue and then Plan Factory, we have multiple layers we can access. Some we can access directly from interface, and other ones will open like material editor. I'll show you the different editors, and you can actually dock them inside the UI if you need it instead of loading in Windows. Under we have enabled toolbar, and it does help because sometimes you maybe forget to enable. By default it will be enabled, and again show okay cancel floating toggle dialog. So whatever dialog is pop up, and usually you can click it. Instead you can say show the button where it says OK or cancel for this. Under we have it numeric edit options, numeric edition options, and currently it's classic. You can change unlimited potential. It's how the numbering going on field changes, so you can enable. Mostly this is for the display purposes only. We have it mouse track configurations. This is in case if you don't have a 3-button mouse, because in many times if you hold down Alt or Option and press middle button, it's allowed you to pan around area. So in this case, if you have it only 2-button mouse, you can click and simulate. This is called control first button, will simulate middle button. Say next. It says do not freeze cursor on UI widget. So it's sometimes just a little bit slow down to general. I don't like this. So this is, you can disable or enable. So for me, it's a click. It's mean do not. So many times, I don't know why, usually click it's make positive, you check this in. So anyway, next we're going with the graphs, which is fold, unfold sections. When the checkbox is ticked, it just expenditure again. You can uncheck by default. Most of this, it's preset done by working with many developers, many digital artists, and they kind of have this preferences. So based on this is what options kind of select here to focus on the majority. But it doesn't mean that you personally maybe want to change the fit more your requirements. Undo, redo. This is actually I almost always increase, and this is really related to some memory usage on your computer. For example, operations that can be done at any time, it will actually store on your hard drive those as temporary or inside the memory. So it depends on how much you have specific resources on your computer. You can assign more or less. I have a 64 gigabyte RAM on this computer, and usually I'm going with higher, like 10 or more. And as well, you can see keep history operation till resource drop below. So for example, if you set here maybe 50 steps, or maybe each step is quite a bit significant changes, then it will monitor for resources. And when resources drop below this threshold, then it will kind of start erasing the early operations. So it's kind of stuck the pile in. It's want to erase your last, but erase the first that come in. Okay, and of course you can have a flash history. This will just wipe out everything. You can use it, just see if your system performance, for example, is start degrading. You can try to flash history, see maybe that is help. If that is help, then work with some undo, redo, reduce those, and make a little bit more resources not in use. It will suffer a little bit with how many steps you can remember, but again, performance is best because it could be very unworkable if it's very slow. Of course, we have an interface scaling. Right now, it's 1 sec. This is if you work on smaller details, like maybe mouse or some small teeny tiny plants, then you can increase, decrease scaling. Kind of helpful in the global, but by default, it's 1. And by the way, the units, it is in the plant factory unit, it's 1 unit equal to 1 meter. So whatever you create plant, and plant become 10 meters long, and for some reason you don't change like scaling or other things, and you start to work on the flower, your flower maybe become 10 meters big. Happened to me before. I know that from self-experience. I forgot to change. I create a plant, whatever, I go and look, and it was like huge, gigantic flower I created. Okay, below we have it gamma options. It's if you have it workflow gamma option, RGB, sRGB, and as well like 1.8 or 2.1, whatever workflow colors you set on yours. Of course, an interface colors, as I said before, you can load a dark gray or just a light gray preset, or you can go inside here and modify all of the colors that you needed. Just sometimes maybe you like something, and of course you can save those colors and share it, or maybe your friend likes some palettes. In many cases it's work if you have it maybe vision impaired, and you want some colors maybe does not look right to you, you can change them in this case. Okay, and of course show ground materials, it's right here on the ground if you need it. Well, we'll disable by default. Let's go next to the scene, and the scene allowed us option to after save and everything. This is must have, and actually in mine, because I used hard drive big size and it's faster transfer rate, everything, I usually even reduce from 5 minutes to maybe like 3 minutes. So it will access hard drive more constantly to save of those after versions. But personal for me, sometimes I don't want to lose something work when I intensively work or faster change in some cases. And of course you have 10 saves. So if you look on the 5 and 10, it's about 50 minutes of your work can be saved. I found out sometimes I want more, so I maybe will set like 30 settings. So in this case, we have it, what is it, 150 minutes about saving. So 120, it will be 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I think approximately we can save of the work, which is about good enough that you can go back and restore it if you do mess up with something. So just save all those versions. Okay, below we use last render as preview, self-explanatory, whatever we have it. Maximum backup versions when saved 20. Now, I think this is kind of okay with this scan for the change in synchronized images. So if you change, for example, if you have it planned, you create somewhere else and you change it and you preload it, it's a synchronized, same like you have a texture on an image, it will change. It will take some computer resources to do this because by default is unchecked. If you check, keep it in mind, for example, you work on some plants. Yes, you create some plant and you have a texture done for this plant. Next, you save it and you enable scan for the changes. Next time you modify texture for something else in your name, same things. You reopen and certainly you see it's different texture. So this may happen. Then it's one pre-cached in your material and you load it new. So I probably will not check this. Instead, if you're working with a group of the people and you have it somewhere who is work on materials on the network drive and you're pointing to network drive and you want to take update version from them as they're working on a texture, so maybe then you want to enable. So you can see it's depend on how your workflow going. And of course, use its system browser. If you notice when we open texture or anything, it's have their own UI to browse around libraries inside the Plant Factory or even View. And here, if you have it, it just will be your normal system file browser instead the native looking. Usually I like use their own. It's kind of let me know it's on, but in case if you prefer, you can uncheck here. Materials preview options, you have the function open queue by default. You also can change this when you work with materials, so you can preview ways you preview here. Also, same with materials options, you can see it's like circle if you prefer, cylinder, cube, or flat view, so you can enable disable here as well on the background. Also, only render materials preview in active editor. It's whatever is currently active. Its will preview will generate for the resources. If you want, you can check in. Disable automatic material preview. That is when you open, material won't showing, but it's showing like hourglass. You need to click on that and make its render in this case to preview. Again, this is just resources. Those two you want to check in if your resources is low on your machine. Okay, and bounce if a warn if it exit. This is for your video card. For me, I usually go a little bit higher number on this because my video card is RTX 3090 with a 24 gigabyte VRAM, so I can handle more on this case. And if you have a smaller video card, you probably won't keep it here, but in a bigger video card, you maybe pop up. Otherwise, it will just look like a blocks. It does not look good. Okay, let's go look on the display. Render options, abort render, click on the render areas. This is very subjectively because few times I accidentally did not see my mouse and I click and it was clicking on the render area and render was stopped. You can resume your render, but just in this case it will stop. So if you want to avoid this, you can uncheck then abort. You just need to click on a button abort instead of clicking on the render areas. Reset render settings when create a new scene. This is useful if you think you will do. Let me put this way: the settings will reset when you close application and open. Okay, but this is if you work with some same application, same instance open, and you're working on one, and you decide to work on another plant after this or and another ones, and they will keep it same render as before. So this is again very personal. Render stacking options. If you notice when it's render images, render multiple images, you can go through all of them, and right here it's showing you how many of those images can keep it in memory. You can specify how many versions of them, previews, you always can change this. As well, you can change place ways like edit. Usually I almost never save on my C drive, because my C drive, the main OS drive for this, and I'm working on Windows 11, it is a SSD drive. I think it's like 3 or 4 terabyte, but it's not enough. Example, my other drives, they're about 18-20 terabytes. So of course I want to save preview maybe another ones. I don't see any performance and preloading those save those pre-renders, but sometimes you want to go back to this so you can adjust here where you want to save and how much of those pre-renders afterwards you want to save it. Okay, below we have a path tracer, and this is a render options when you're creating and you select path render, for example, in your main window, so you can preview almost like a live preview, but it's still take a little bit time. And right here you can reset those options or pause after 30 seconds. So because it will be render, keep on going, till it's all complete. It's like progressive rendering, and you don't want loaded resources. Sometimes you want cut at specific time, and this is where you set 30 seconds cut off time on this. And memory usage, stop building plans. Okay, if your memory going down, performance is decreasing, and it won't be assigned more resources. So it's here as well. This is all resources based. Usually this one you want to decrease if your computer is a little bit slower on performance. Same with a path tracer. If your video card cannot handle, you can reduce amount, like for example, stop after 20 seconds. That won't be good quality on path tracer because maybe not enough time to render, but it won't be bug down your system when it's creating. Okay, let's look on units, and what I specified before, the plan factor unit. So one of this unit, one kind of like teeny square, it is 1 TPF unit, so the plan factor units equal to 1 meter. You can switch to the imperial or other sides here. Also, you can also switch the display unit to maybe millimeters or centimeters if you work like on small flowers as well. So you can do from here as well. And also set, for example, the plan factor unit like this could be equal to centimeter, 1 centimeter if you want to work, or the bigger 1 kilometer. So this is where you can also set your globals. And notice orientation, it's also X, Y, Z. This is view things. If we look on our settings, in a view is a little bit different because X going horizontally, Y it's going far away, and Z up. It's same like in the some other applications I think was doing Carrara, and some other ones I think was similar. So but majority of the application using Y is up, X is horizontal, and Z is dimensional away from the camera kind of going. So those is dimension, and you can change them here as well. Apply to all objects, as you're working with objects, with same direction will apply there as well. Okay, let's go ahead next to shortcuts, and remember we'll look to preload those shortcuts. Here you actually can preview, and notice we have the same things, legacy and industrial standard. So similar things. When we have it a load preset right here, we have it legacy and industry standard. So same things you can do directly from here. You also can save it and preview on what shortcuts it's using. So it's kind of useful in this case. You can change directly shortcuts and you can modify them. So for this, you can just click on one and type shortcut which one you need it, like apply to view, Lumen RT, or other things. Just create your own shortcuts and preview how they work. Okay, let's go look on the import, and it is import of the presets, import of the application settings, as well some additional contents if you have it, textures, objects, material, whatever. So right here you have it your import from the content folder, image viewer import, and also texture flag. So if you need it, switch to the alpha, color, displacement, whatever you have your layers for your materials, whatever defined. So right here, this is probably you won't change, except if you maybe work with some specific definition in your place, maybe, or some PBR different. If you can go and modify, see if they work or something. But usually this is, you probably less likely you will change any options here. Okay, this is kind of all about options that you can modify. Before we kind of wrapped up, one thing I want to show you, it is if you go display workspace, and this is kind of related to this UI, you'll notice we have it a lock workspace and show panel title. So let's uncheck lock workspace, and you notice we appear these dotted lines. So it's meaning now we can take this, we can move and totally reorganize how we wanted our screen. For example, I can take this and says, you know what, you see where's a hand up here, and I says I want to put on a side. So I'll put this on a side and create properties very big screen. So I can modify positioning how I want it on this case. Let me go put it back. Usually when I work a little bit redesign my own for personal use, but for the classes we'll just keep it vanilla settings. After you modify, and by the way, you can actually even drag away from the screen and put it on your secondary or third screen, or whatever you like it. But after when you're done repositioning, reassign all of those windows, I do recommend go back workspace and click on lock workspace. This way you accidentally does not drag and put it somewhere else. So this is kind of helpful. Next workspace, we have it the show panel titles, like on the bottom where you can say component summary. So this is just to display those titles for the panels or hide them. Just save a little bit space if you need extra. For this one, I'll just leave it as alone. And of course, we have workspace, and you have it load and save workspace. When you customize your workspace, you can save it, for example, editing plans or working on materials or some other ones. You have it workspace customized for specific task. Then you can save here and preload it on those workspace based on a task you're working with. And of course, we can go and anytime click default workspace, and you can see right here we switch to the default workspace with actually texturing is showing on the side this way. Okay, and this is cover our sections about options inside the Plan Factory. Of course, a little bit more customizations will be applied here with different elements as we going along, maybe some panels repositioning and everything, but this should give you very good start on the applications and find ways kind of all these elements located.